Today, I'm going to tell you the origin story of my framework, Work Like You Work Out. I want to start by saying I didn't set out to create this methodology. What actually happened is I got super sick and I couldn't work the way that I was working anymore, and I had to find something different. And I'll be totally honest, it came with a lot of grief, a lot of agony, a lot of why me. And I'm going to tell you the whole story. So stick around if you're someone who feels like the traditional productivity advice doesn't work for you and it hasn't worked for you and you need something new. I'm going to teach you all of that today. What I found during that season of sickness wasn't something that I planned. I teach it like I planned it, like I just came up with it, and I didn't. It found me. It came out of necessity. I needed it because I still had coaching clients to take care of. I still had a business to run, and I found myself almost incapacitated to be able to do any of that. And it has completely changed the way that I coach high performers, including the way that I coach myself. So today I'm giving you the full version, the full story, the unpolished version, including the part where I'm sitting on the couch, wondering if I'm ever going to be okay again. But before I get any further into this, let me introduce myself. My name's Deibert. I'm a performance coach for high achievers, and I work with high performers who already know what to do, but they can't quite get themselves to do it. The thing that I'm going to tell you is a literal origin story of my Work Like You Work Out framework. And if you feel like all the productivity advice on the internet doesn't fit you somehow, I'm going to explain to you why and what to do about it and what's going to work for you instead. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my athletic history, I guess. When I was in high school and growing up, ever since I was 8 years old, I was on the swim team. And then later in high school, I joined the dance team and we won state championships. It was super fun. And then post high school, I kind of did more running and cycling and whatever. And I started doing triathlons because I'd swam growing up and I loved cycling. I hate running. I run because I have to, not because I have to, because I choose to, but it's super easy to do, but I'm not a good runner. So anyway, I was doing triathlons. And in that season of my life, this was like pre-kids. We were yuppies. It was the best. We had all the time in the world. We could go on these long bike rides. And so I was doing a lot of triathlons. I was doing 100-mile bike rides. I was doing a lot of kind of like endurance type things, half marathons. And I found that my work style was very similar to that. Like, but thinking in hindsight, that's exactly how my workday went as well. There was a lot of upfront planning and then just straight execution for long periods of time. I didn't see it at the time, but my work style absolutely mirrored my workout style. I can see that in hindsight now, but I didn't realize that at the time. And then fast forward, I moved to San Francisco. I'm working at tech startups. It's crazy. For any of you who have ever worked at a tech unicorn, we hit $1 billion valuation in less than 5 years. We had backing from Jared Leto and Ashton Kutcher and David Sachs and like Andreessen Horowitz, and Mark Andreessen would pop by our office all the time. And it was crazy. And I was working really hard, doing all these crazy hours. And then I had a kid. And if you haven't had a kid yet, spoiler alert, they change everything. It's like all this constraint suddenly comes into your life and you can no longer have all the space and time you had before to do what you did. And it was interesting because I guess it was probably, we'll say like 5 or 6 years after having my first child. By this point, I'd quit my job. I'd started my coaching business. It was middle of the pandemic. I had just had COVID. I also had had a mouth surgery, and I found myself completely fatigued. Like, I don't know what was happening. It was kind of a mystery of why this was happening, but I could not function. I would sleep for 12 hours a night. I'd take a 5-hour nap every single day. If I stood up to wash the dishes, I was wiped for the rest of the day, like massive, massive fatigue. I felt like my body was like, okay, you can't do this anymore. You've been working too hard. You've been burning the candle at both ends. This is just full burnout mode and you've got to rebuild everything. And I'll be completely honest with you, I was devastated. If you've ever taken the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 3. I found out that after I named this podcast, the Achievers Podcast, but that is like what I'm all about. I want to achieve. I want to succeed. I'm all about status. I'm trying to heal that part of myself. But like that was my MO of like, I have to achieve. I have to have status. I have to build these cool big things that people are going to be impressed with. And my body finally shut down and said, no more. And I was devastated. Like being in that moment, and feeling like, am I ever going to be who I was again? I loved exercising. I loved doing these endurance things. And now I finally got to the point where I was like healing my gut and I was able to exercise for a little bit, but it was really like 20-minute walks around my neighborhood. That's all I could do. And I had to rebuild the way that I was working because I couldn't work the super long hours that I've been doing in the startup world, that I've been doing with having kids, running a business, everything else. It all fell apart. And there was a real moment of like just grief of like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be the person that I was before. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get back to that. And in that moment is when this framework came about. Not because I wanted it to, not because I had this stroke of brilliance, but it was out of necessity. I learned that I could walk for about 20 minutes, and I noticed that that was about the same amount of time that my brain could focus for when I was sitting down to work. It's interesting because I was trying the Pomodoro Technique, and if you've ever heard of the Pomodoro Technique, it's basically interval training for work. You do 25 minutes of focused work, take a 5-minute break, 25 minutes of work, take a 5-minute break. And that's how it's supposed to be set up. And I could not focus for 25 minutes. I couldn't. I tried to get to 25 moments. I never made it to 25 minutes, but I would make it to 20 minutes. 20 minutes was all the focus that I had. And I was like, oh, this is super interesting because my 20-minute walk is all the energy I have. And my 20-minute of focus is all the mental energy I have. And this is where I started to look at, I wonder if there's a correlation between how we physically like to expend energy and how we mentally like to expend energy. And that was the whole basis of Work Like You Work Out. It started out of necessity. It started out of agony. It started out of grief and pain and misery. And it was a way that I could support myself as I was healing my body and coming back into being able to function again. Fast forward to now, and it's so interesting to see how my physical energy expenditure has changed and my mental energy expenditure has changed. I got to a place where my body was healed. I was feeling really fit and feeling energized again, ready to exercise. I started doing more strength training, and strength training taught me something so important about my workday. I love strength training. I have so much fun strength training. It's so hard to do cardio now because strength training is so much fun. And what I learned is even in strength training, I wouldn't give myself enough breaks in between sets. So it's sets and reps. You do 3 sets and 8 reps to 12 reps, whatever it is, depending on what you're doing. And I wouldn't give myself enough rest in between sets. I would just try to go right back into the next one. And my personal trainer would be like, no, you have to rest, and would not let me do the next set until the timer had gone off and I was fully rested. And I realized I was doing the same thing in my workday. In my workday, I was just working as hard as I could for as long as I could. And then I'd hit a point where I'd like completely burn out. I was just like so mentally, emotionally, physically fatigued that I couldn't do anything anymore. And so I started implementing the same idea of sets and reps in my workday, of having those focus periods and then taking a break, having a focus period and then taking a break. And I was able to do so much more with such better quality for so much longer because I gave myself these breaks during the day. It was wild to me to see how this worked out. So I was applying all these ideas to myself. I didn't have a name for the framework yet. And I was working with other clients, and somebody would come up to me and be like, I keep hearing about deep work. Everybody's talking about deep work. I think I need to do more deep work in my workday. And I would look at them and like, respectfully, you don't strike me as a deep work kind of a person. Like, I don't know what says, like, there's something about your energy that's just not a fit for you. It doesn't make sense. And yes, everybody on LinkedIn is talking about doing deep work right now, and that's what you need to do. But like, when I look at you, that's not your energy style. And it wasn't until I realized I could look at how they like to exercise to figure out what their workday should look like. I'd learned all the productivity techniques, and I knew kind of like how all these different things work together. And I could map those different productivity techniques to what their workday should look like. So let me give you a couple examples. I had one client who came to me. He's one of my favorite. I mean, I love all my clients. This one is fascinating to me. He came to me and he was like, look, I am the #1 rep right now. I closed, I think, 35% over my best year ever this past year. And I am so overwhelmed. I have so much on my plate. There's so much to do. I have aspirations to close even more, but I cannot add a single thing to my plate. I'm working 12-hour days. I don't get to see my daughter. I'm coming into the office early. I'm leaving late. I don't have time for my hobbies. I don't have time for my wife. I like, something has got to give. And so I looked at how he likes to exercise. I said, And by the way, I don't even care if you work out or not. I care about how do you like to expend physical energy? And so looking at this client, their favorite way to exercise was golfing. He loved the moment on the tee of complete focus. Everything else is gone and he's completely focused for a short period of time. And then he loved the parts where he was able to build relationships and talk to people as they walk the course. And I was like, this is interesting. I wonder if we build this into your workday. So we were able to find times of complete focus for him where he got done all the necessary things. And by getting all of that done in a short, focused period of time, allowed him to do what he loved most, which was build relationships with the rest of his day. And it was wild because he actually had a health scare while we were talking together. And he was like, something's got to give. I've got to change this. He ended up losing like 30 or 40 pounds when we were working together. It was not my, I don't do anything with weight loss, but he was so motivated. He ended up working 6-hour days after that. He would go into the office. He would leave by 3:30. He would go to the driving range after work and golf after work and be home in time to see his daughter when she got home from school. So he had so much more time with his family. He was much healthier. He was working half the hours that he was working before, and he closed 45% over the year before. He blew his number out of the water by working less hours, focusing on the way that he works best. Isn't that wild? It was so cool to see. And then a few other clients that come to mind. There's so many examples, but one of them in particular was a rock climber. And when this person came to me, I was blown away at how they worked. I've never seen somebody who works like this before. This person tracked every single minute of every single day, and I knew exactly where their productivity was and exactly where they were spending their time. And this person was so determined to retire by 40. So this person was completely burning themselves out, working harder than anybody that I've ever met because they were so determined to retire by 40. And when I asked this person how they liked to expend physical energy, they were a rock climber. And I asked, what do you love about rock climbing? And what they loved was sitting back and looking at the rock. And with rock climbing, they call it like problems to solve, like looking at the different problems and thinking about how he would solve those problems, and then being on the rock for about 40 minutes. So we mapped their workday to look like this. And we mapped out time for them to sit back and think, and time for them to have the space to strategize on their problems. And then focus time, no more than 40 minutes on the problem, like working on the thing. And it was wild because this person was like, I'm getting way better results. I'm getting so many more accolades, and I'm so less stressed. I'm finally enjoying work. I don't feel like I absolutely have to retire at 40. The reason they wanted to retire at 40 was because they couldn't do it anymore. They're like, it's too hard. It's too much. I cannot do this for a sustained period of time. And now their job became sustainable because they started working in the way that their energy wanted them to work. Here's the thing. Your body already has the blueprint of how you should be working. It already has the blueprint. All you have to do is listen to that blueprint. So I have a few things for you. First of all, I am speaking about this topic. I'm going around and doing workshops with teams. I'm also speaking at conferences or speaking at SKOs to teach people this process because it's so amazing. I'm sure during this conversation, you've had insights about yourself of like, oh, I could just change that 1-2 thing. It's so simple and so easy. So I'm teaching people about this in speaking events. So if you have any interest, come to my website, mentalmastery.com/speaking. You can get examples of me speaking. You can come reach out to me and see if this would be a good fit for your team. But secondly, I also created a quiz on my website where you can go and find your work like you work out style. And once you take the quiz, it's 3 questions. It's so fast. It takes 90 seconds. Once you finish the quiz, it gives you specific customized advice on what you should do in your workday based on your work like you work out style. After you submit your email, you get the results. And then I've got I think it's 6 emails that I send you that are specific to your type. So it gives you even more detailed information about what you should do based on your workout style, because you're not going to get all of it in just one email or one result. So I built it out so that you get it over time and you get all the information. So go check that out. You can just find it on my website, mentalmastery.com, or you can go specifically to the quiz at mentalmastery.com/quiz. I don't know where this idea came from. I think it came from the universe. It came from some other part outside of me. I'm so grateful that I get to be the one that shares it with people. I hope that this has been helpful for you. And I want you to know that if you have been struggling with productivity advice, it's not your fault. It's just the wrong fit for you. If you want more help figuring this out, come take my quiz, come take my assessment. If I have a few openings for coaching slots. So if you want help specifically on your situation, you can come find out more at my website, mentalmastery.com. And as always, I'll be writing a whole summary about what we've talked about in my newsletter coming up later this week. So if you want to get on the list, make sure you sign up for that. You can go to mentalmastery.com/newsletter. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next week.